We all know Janja as the troublemaking hyena that was always trying to look for food in the Pride Lands. He and his clan were always causing problems for Kion and his guard, but as the furbrains they are, they were never smart enough. Until one day, they all of a sudden had great plans and almost outsmarted the Lion Guard. But they were too dumb to do this on their own, so who was the true mastermind behind this? Well, this was all the idea of Scar, who had returned in his fiery spirit. Now you would think that Janja would be happy when Scar returned, because he could finally make his plans work. But to our surprise, we see that Janja looks terrified when he sees that Ushari's plan to make Scar appear actually worked. Did you ever wonder why Janja looked so terrified? Was he just impressed by his fiery spirit, or was there a deeper reason Janja was so afraid? Well, I believe Janja did have a reason to be so afraid of Scar, and it's not what you might expect. This may sound strange since Scar died before Janja was born, but there are some signs that make this theory really believable. So make sure you pay close attention. The plans of Scar's return all started when Janja and his crew, Cheesy and Chungu, had their plans foiled by the Lion Guard as always. But as they are walking back to the Outlands, they run into a snake named Ushari. At first, they wanted to eat him, but then the snake says something interesting. This little snake thinks that the Lion Guard has disrespected him too much, and so he needs to teach them a lesson. He thinks he can bring Scar back because he heard that Kion and Rafiki were able to hear the great lions of the past. So when he secretly followed Rafiki's new apprentice, Makini, he found out he was right. Rafiki showed Makini how you could also bring the evil lions of the past back, but that she should never do this. Rafiki and Makini didn't realize they had someone watching them. Now Ushari also knew how to bring back Scar, and went to tell Janja right away. Janja still wasn't sure if it was going to work, but they still went on to try it. They went on with their plan. They needed to throw Makini's staff into the volcano of the Outlands while Kion would let out a powerful roar. For this, they attacked Kiara and Makini and took Makini's staff. But they also kidnapped Kiara to lead Kion and his guard into the Outlands. In a moment of anger, Kion lets out an angry roar, just like Ushari had planned. To Janja's surprise, Ushari's plan actually worked, and Scar appears in the volcano. I don't know about you, but I've never seen Janja look so terrified. Before we get to why Janja was so terrified, it's important to remember who was Scar. We all of course know Scar as Simba's mean uncle from The Lion King 1, the one who killed his own brother Mufasa and even tried to kill his nephew. But luckily, Simba survived and ran off. Scar became known as the worst king the Pride Lands had ever known. He was so bad that even the hyenas that worked for him confessed that things were better under Mufasa. Meanwhile, Simba was living a life with no worries with Timon and Pumbaa deep in the jungle, until his childhood best friend, Nala, showed up. After she told him about the state of the Pride Lands and that she needed Simba to overthrow Scar, he walked away from her, telling her he was never going back to the Pride Lands. But then, he walked into Rafiki, the royal Njuzi of the Pride Lands. With the help of both Nala and Rafiki, Simba returned to the Pride Lands and waged war against Scar for the throne of Pride Rock. When Scar realized that he was about to lose the battle, he used his cunning again and tried to blame the hyenas to save himself. But Simba didn't believe him and gave Scar the chance to run away. But he tried to attack Simba again. Simba pushed him off the rock, where the hyenas were angrily waiting for him. The hungry hyenas then ate Scar, and with a last scream his life ended right there. But how could this have anything to do with Janja, you might think? For that, we should look at what we know about Janja's childhood. We have to assume that Janja was an orphan, since we never see any older hyenas with him and his clan in the Lion Guard series. There are some theories that Shenzi could be his mother, but that is something for another video. This already means that growing up was not easy for Janja, and it's weird because hyenas usually hunt in groups and take care of their young ones, so it means that something must have happened that made Janja's parents leave him alone with the other hyenas like Cheesy and Chungu. But what is it that made his parents leave him? The answer to this question takes us back to only one person. Yep, you guessed right, Scar. In The Lion King, after the death of Scar in the fire, Simba banished the hyenas from the Pride Lands. They probably only lived in the Outlands for a little while after that, because in The Lion King 2, when Nuka goes with Vitani to set the trap for Kiara, he says, "This place is even creepier since the hyenas ran off." But why did they run off? We hear many times how awful it is to live in the Outlands, mainly because there is less food and less water. Chances are that when the young hyenas like Janja asked why they always had to be hungry, the old hyenas like Shenzi and Bonsai would tell them stories of how they plotted to take over the Pride Lands with a lion called Scar. But since the plot failed, they were told to leave the Pride Lands. This would mean that from when he was small, Janja would have associated Scar with the reason why he didn't have enough food. But they also must have told him how Scar had tried to betray them, and therefore the royal family wasn't reliable. But that's not all. I think that this is also the reason why Janja doesn't have any old hyenas looking after him. What if they didn't die? What if things got so hard in the Outlands that they literally had to choose between all of them dying and abandoning those who were too small or weak or weren't old enough to take care of themselves? Because we know, thanks to Nuka, that the hyenas left the Outlands. But what if they decided to leave the young ones behind? Because food was scarce. They wouldn't know how long they had to travel before they would come across a new place to live. So they decided to be selfish and save themselves. That would mean small hyenas like Janja would also think of Simba as the reason why they were abandoned by their parents. Because if you think about it, if Simba would have allowed his family's clan to live in the Pride Lands, they would never have abandoned him. This could be the reason Janja hates the Lion Guard so much. Even since he was little, he always had problems with Kion. But I don't think that Shenzi and her hyenas were as bad as they may seem now, because we know that there was still another clan living in the Outlands, Jasiri's clan. Even though Scar probably screwed her family as well, and if you want to know more about that, you should watch my video about Jasiri and Scar. Shenzi could have thought if the little ones were in real trouble, the other clan would have probably helped them out, because as we later see in the Lion Guard, Jasiri is always willing to help Janja, even after he tries to attack her. She says she would always help a hyena, because they are all the same. But why didn't Janja live with Jasiri's clan? Probably because he still hated Simba and he couldn't take it that Jasiri's clan respected the circle of life. The words of the older hyenas often went through his mind, how he shouldn't trust anyone and how it is every hyena for themselves. This brings us back to another reason Janja was so afraid of Scar. When Scar returns in his fiery spirit, Janja immediately takes some steps back, and many other times Janja speaks to Scar, he seems really afraid. That was probably because he was afraid to trust Scar, knowing what he had done to Shenzi's clan. Out of fear, he went on to do all Scar's tasks and demanded the other hyenas to do the same. He knew he was being watched because the skinks were everywhere. Scar had built up a whole army of Outlanders, so there wasn't really any other choice, or so he thought. Until he realized something was wrong. During one of Scar's final attacks, Janja had to lead the Lion Guard into the lair to close them in while the vultures would set the lair on fire. But what they didn't realize is that Janja's biggest fear was about to come true. Scar was about to betray the hyenas because he locked them in the fire as well. When Janja realized that Scar had tried to betray them, he saw that Jasiri was right all along. He went on to tell her he wants to be with her clan now, and said he wanted to help defeat Scar. He thought he could help Kion and the guard since Scar had told him how he could be defeated. At least, that is what Janja thought. Because Scar had his own suspicions that Janja would betray him, so he had only told him half of the truth. Scar had told him he could be defeated when Kion would use his Roar of the Elders inside the volcano. But this wasn't true. But luckily Kion realized this in time and still got to defeat Scar. At the end, he needed the help of the great lions of the past, but he didn't need to roar. So when Kion asked the lions of the past to forgive Scar, Scar was defeated. When Janja heard the news, he seemed very excited that it was finally over and that he could be part of Jasiri's clan. It seems like he had finally found someone he could really trust and was truly happy. He later even traveled all the way to the Tree of Life together with Jasiri, which shows that he really has changed. Even though he could be very stupid sometimes, we finally see that he was also capable of doing good things. He and his closest furbrains, Cheesy and Chungu, had come a long way, and they were lucky they always had each other. So what do you think? Does Janja's past have anything to do with why he was so afraid of Scar? Could Shenzi and her clan have any connections to Janja and his clan? After all, Janja seems to have made himself a pretty good life. We don't know what truly happened to Shenzi and her clan after they ran off, but they probably wished they were still living in the Outlands by now. Do you believe Shenzi could be Janja's mother? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when a next theory comes out. I'll see you in the next one.